What's going on, guys? It's Chandler here at the channel. Come back to you guys again with another video. Today we're going to be doing a quick guide similar to how Mac did one a couple weeks ago, but today we're going to be going over how to zero your red dot. Let's check it out. Disclaimer, I know a lot of you already know how to do this, but there are still a lot of new shooters coming into our industry that a quick guide like this may be useful for. So if you like videos like this and quick guides and how-tos, go ahead and hit that like button below, subscribe, or if you have any questions and are new to this industry or the channel, go ahead and leave a comment and we will get back to you. So it seems right now red dots are all the rage, whether it's a reflex sight, holographic sight, prism sight. It seems like everybody is going after red dots, and good reason. They make for really easy and simple target acquisition tools as compared to regular iron sights. Now, some people swear by regular iron sights, and red dots are by no means a replacement. As they say, 2 is 1 and 1 is none when it comes to sighting systems. First thing you're going to want to do is make sure your optic works. And I know this sounds really obvious, but you want to make sure that you put the battery in the optic and make sure it functions correctly before you put it on the sight, or else you're going to go through all that effort of mounting it on the sight, maybe Loctiting it, making sure it's good, and then you go to turn it on and it may not even work. So make sure first that the function of the optic is good, and then you want to make sure that you are mounting your red dot where you want it for as long as possible. Many red dot sights nowadays are usually mounted and stay mounted even when you need to change the battery. So you want to make sure that you have your optic where you want it at the time you first set it, so that way you will not have to remove it later and change its location. I recently had to do this with my EOTech. I mounted it too far back, and when I added the magnifier I had to remove it, take it forward a couple sections of Picatinny rail, and then remount it and re-zero it. It's not really a big deal, but the process is easier if you put it where you want it the first time. So after you pick out that spot where you want to mount your optic, then make sure to Loctite it to the proper torque spec that is often included in the user's manual of your optic. Essentially every optic that I've purchased has came with a torque spec to tighten your red dot down to. But before you tighten it down on your optic, you want to make sure that you Loctite it. I know I got ahead of myself. When I got my EOTech, I threw it on the AR, torqued it down to what it needed to be, and then went out to the range. It didn't hold, it came loose, and I ended up having to go through the whole process of re-zeroing again because my optic came loose from the threading. So I usually recommend blue Loctite, so that way if you need to take it off for whatever reason, it is not absolutely seized on there forever. Once your optic is on there and where you want it to be, before you head to the range, if you have iron sights and you know they're on, start there. So go through and zero your red dot to where your iron sights are, so that way you have a good starting point. Obviously this only works if you know your iron sights are good, so if you just purchased a new pair of iron sights and a red dot, doing an iron sight zero may not work very well. Obviously this won't be accurate extremely when you get out to the range, but it should be enough to get you on paper when you start. For when you head out to the range, you need to keep in mind what your optic's purpose will be. Now if it's something like a simple reflex sight, like on a pistol, you're probably not going to be carrying that out to 50 yards. Some people may, but a closer zero is usually acceptable. The only thing is, whatever you choose to do, make sure to have that in mind when you go to the range so you're not wasting time. After that, you need to pick out a distance that will be attainable for the optic that you're starting with. So for example, if we're clear, a pistol red dot that we will be using that I have iron sight zeroed before we get to the range, and I plan to zero it at say 10 yards, then I should be fine. Just go back to 10 yards and carry through with my zero because it's already zeroed to iron sights anyway. However, say I have a fresh optic like an EOTech or LPVO and you don't know where it's going to be on paper. If you want to zero it for 50 yards, you don't want to just jump back to 50 yards. Start somewhere closer to see if you're on paper. What I usually do for my EOTech is a 50-200 zero because that reticle is designed for that. So when I got it first, instead of jumping straight to 50 yards, what I did before that was I went forward to see if I was on paper and somewhat accurate at closer distances, like 25 yards. And if I'm on paper and in an acceptable range, from there I will step back to 50 and then zero in. Once you've found your distance that you're going to start at, make sure that you find a stable platform to shoot from. If you can get away from it, you don't want to shoot free-handed, because no matter what, you're always going to have some sort of error that is yourself. These guns are more accurate than we are. A lot of times it works with rifles or pistols. You can take one of your range bags, prop it up, and use that for a prop for your firearm. It's worked well, and it eliminates a lot of the movement that comes from the human body. And once you're at the range that you've stepped back to and you've got it on paper and you're ready to go, keep in mind that the zeroing process is very iterative. So you're going to want to take an iterative approach when you're going through this. Meaning, after you've got it on paper at a closer distance and you step back to your zeroing distance, I usually fire 3 shots at my point of aim to see where the point of impact is. So once I fire those 3 shots, we'll call range clear. We'll go up to the target and we will analyze where the point of impact was and see what adjustments to make from there. Sometimes you pull shots and you have to draw conclusions based on leaving out your outliers. Once you get your grouping and come to a conclusion on where you need to adjust your optic to, make those adjustments on your optic. Make sure you know what each click is on your optic in MOA. So if it's a 0.5 MOA optic, that means at 100 yards, 1 click will move you ½ an inch. When you step closer to 50 yards, 1 click, instead of being at ½ an inch, 2 clicks would be ½ an inch because you're half the distance. Or if you're at 25 yards, it would be 4 clicks. It moves you ½ an inch because it's a quarter of the distance. So the closer you get, the more adjusting you're probably going to have to do to get that reticle in the sweet spot, to get your point of aim to equal your point of impact. And finally, once you've taken this iterative approach a few times, sometimes it only takes 2, sometimes it takes 3, sometimes it takes as many as it takes. There is a learning curve, so keep in mind when you're going through this not to get frustrated, because depending on what kind of situation you have to stabilize or what your trigger pull's like, those can throw off shots and it may take longer to go through and zero. The important thing is when you're done, you want to make sure that you verify your zero and can verify your zero over and over and over so you know it's on. Zeroing your optic is something you want to set aside time for at the range and make sure you do it correctly. Because at the end of the day, if your point of aim and your point of impact are not the same, it cannot do a very good job at protecting you. Because at the end of the day, a red dot is still a tool, and if you don't use a tool correctly, then it will not do what it is functioned to do. And that is going to about do it for this one, guys. Let us know what you think of these short guides in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. It's a great support to the channel. We really appreciate it. We like the feedback and comments that you guys are giving us all the time, and we always try to get back to those as soon as we can. Remember, patience is key when it comes to zeroing your red dot. This has been Chandler with Range Day, where every day is range day. Have a good one, guys.